We're Christine and Kevin, and we've been traveling full-time as a family for over 5 years. We're spending 11 weeks exploring all over the island of Ireland. And in this video, we're driving the Causeway Coastal Route, which has some of Northern Ireland's top destinations, including a famous World Heritage Site that you've probably heard of. The north coast of Northern Ireland is filled with amazing places that you're probably familiar with, like Carrick-a-rede Bridge and the Giant's Causeway. We are starting from Belfast today and taking the Causeway Coastal Route all the way along the eastern edge of the northern coast until we reach some of those really well-known places.
We are starting the day off at one you might have heard of before. It's called Carrickfergus Castle, and this is probably the first stop on this route outside of Belfast. Carrickfergus Castle was built way back in 1177 when the island of Ireland was still made up of multiple kingdoms. It actually continued to be an important military castle all the way until 1928. It's now a state care historic monument, museum, and honestly one of the best preserved castles in all of Ireland, and it would also make for an excellent day trip if you're staying in Belfast.
Coincidentally, we just happened to visit on the day that they have an event called Medieval Mayhem. The castle was full of people dressed up as knights and various other characters. There were displays where you could get hands-on with armor and weaponry, a live-action exhibit with a medieval surgeon, and another one down in the cellar about food and cooking. I think because of the event going on at the castle today, the kids were able to make some crafts. Samantha didn't make this one herself. I helped her, but she's so cute, isn't she? Crowns and swords. And now we're gonna head on up the coast to our next destination. Well, in true scenic drive fashion, we didn't have to go very far before we found something else where we wanted to stop. This area is called Drains Bay, And there's a beachfront down here where there are families and people walking, people on a paddleboard. So we thought we'd stop and enjoy it as well. Baby's getting a little snack. And then we're gonna go walk on the beach. There is something out there that looks like a lighthouse and maybe a castle or something out on a rock. I'm not sure, but it looks really neat. We're gonna go down there and get a closer look.
We had only given ourselves a couple of days to explore this whole route, and you could easily spend a week exploring all the things to do along it. We treated this portion of it mostly as a scenic drive, but if you have more time, check out the Gobbins and more of the Antrim Coast and Glens area.
The Gobbins Cliff Path is a series of bridges built along spectacular sea cliffs. It wasn't something we could do with the baby, unfortunately, but it's high on our list of things to do for a return trip. For every beautiful view that we show you guys, there's 5 to 10 more. Like there's one around every corner, and I don't even know where to look. You can look out to the water and the beach and the waves, or you can look up here into the hills where the cliffs are already emerging, and they're just gonna get bigger as we get to the places we're going. There's castles, there's cute towns, there's pubs, there's all sorts of stuff. You could stop every 5 minutes, which is also why we're not making very good time. It is already coming up on 4 o'clock. Definitely a lot more than 1 day for this. 2 days minimum, I would say, if you're better at travel time management than we are and can stick to more of a plan and not stop for everything where you're like, ooh, that's pretty. If you're more like us, maybe 3 or 4 days. There are actually several other scenic drives that you can do as you're coming up this coastal route. I don't know exactly how many, but we've seen several, and I remember on the website there were more than a handful. So keep an eye out for the signage as you're driving along the coastal route, because it will be in brown and tell you that there's another scenic drive coming up. And you can just loop through those, and it kind of adds on to this route and then eventually meets back up with it.
We just stopped at another overlook on our way down the road here, and from here, from an overlook point, you can actually see the Carrick-a-rede bridge down below, which is where we were originally headed today. We realized we weren't going to make it because we spent so much time sightseeing along the way. We have something else we're going to go see this evening instead, but tomorrow we will be on that bridge.
The Carrick-a-rede Bridge is a swinging rope bridge that spans a 20-meter gap between the mainland and a small island. At the highest point, you're 30 meters above the rocks below. The bridge has existed in various forms for hundreds of years, and they say it began with salmon fishermen. Nowadays, it's become quite a tourist attraction.
The other unexpected bonus to this overlook is that you can actually see Scotland from here, as it's only about 20 miles away. After taking in the views, we continued on to our next stop.
Near the entrance to Carrick-a-rede Bridge, is the picturesque Ballintoy Harbour. It's down a very tight and steep road, and it's another filming location from Game of Thrones. That and its proximity to both Carrick-a-rede and the Giant's Causeway have made this another popular tourist spot. But it's also just a really neat place to get out and do some exploring. There's a nice beach, some caves, and we thought some of the rocks even looked a bit similar to the columns at Giant's Causeway.
At this point, it was pretty late in the day, so we stopped for dinner and called it a night. The next morning, we drove straight back and began our day at Dunluce Castle, which is another really popular spot, and the parking fills up pretty early.
Dunluce Castle dates back to the 13th century and is an absolutely spectacular castle ruin that just keeps getting better the further you make it into the site. There's a visitor center with historical exhibits right where you buy your entry tickets, and then you can explore the rest of it on your own. I'm having such a fun time here. It is neat finding all these beautiful photo opportunities in front of these windows, in front of this old fireplace, just beautiful windows, architecture everywhere. So it is really neat to walk around and see, and really neat to explore and see the pictures of what this place used to look like. Also worth noting that even though there are a lot of people here, it is so easy to find your own nook. You just wait for the photo that you want to take, and eventually people wander off. And because there's so many rooms and so many walls, like you could take large pictures of huge halls and rooms and have nobody in it because they've just wandered around the corner. So this is really, really cool. final impressions are that this was even better than we expected, right?
I think this is one of the best castles we've seen in Northern Ireland yet, if not the best. There's obviously a reason why it's so popular. It's really, really good.
If we had more time, we would take this trail that goes down to see it from a different vantage point, but we are off to our next location, the one that we did not make it to yesterday, the Carrick-a-rede Bridge, and I'm hoping it's not too windy to cross it. Let's go.
We should probably mention at this point that the Causeway Coastal Route actually continues all the way to Derry City, another 40 miles to the southwest, with plenty more to see, but we ended our trip at Giant's Causeway.
Change of plans, because I knew that the Carrick-a-rede Bridge could be closed down due to high winds. I called, and sure enough, they're not open at the moment. They're going to reassess in about an hour, but the winds are supposed to continue this afternoon, so it may be that we're out of luck today. So tip, if you are in this area and you can get to the bridge first when the weather is good, do that so that you make sure you get the chance. So we'll see if we get the chance to today, or if we come back another day, what we decide to do. So instead, we're headed to the Giant's Causeway. This is madness here at the moment. Lots of buses, lots of people. People already looks like they're in the overflow parking over there. So we're crawling along the road, just going slow, trying to figure out what we're gonna do, where we're gonna park. Wish us luck. All right, so next dilemma, because we're, kind of flying by the seat of our pants here and weren't sure exactly when we would get here. We didn't want to book our tickets yet, but apparently it's so busy that you have to pre-book or they're full up. So we're gonna head down the hill instead, where we saw the buses coming up, to see at the railway if there are any extra spots for us there. So there are lots of parking options. Just, I think the busier it gets, the more difficult it gets to find one of them. I had read that the Nook restaurant there had parking for patrons, but that was closed off. I had also read that the Causeway Hotel had parking if you were gonna pay, but that didn't look like an option today either. And you heard that the main parking was full, which is good because I didn't want that one anyway because it was the most expensive.
The main parking was going to be almost 40 pounds for us, so I'm not that beat up about that not working out.
Yeah, we weren't planning to see the visitor center, just walk down to the causeway, but they don't do per vehicle, they do per individual. Just up the hill is the Causeway Coastway car park, and it is 10 pounds, but they are also quite full. However, we can wait here for 10 to 15 minutes for a spot.
We will get there one way or another.
Life is suddenly a lot better and a lot less stressful now that we've parked and I have a coffee and we can just get started. Why the rope bridge is not open today. It's very windy. I'm using this on my hat for the very first time as well.
And less than a 2-minute stroll later, we're back at the point where they turned us away. You can go up here to the right to go along the cliff tops and walk down that way, but we're gonna head down to the tunnel.
If you haven't heard of it, Giant's Causeway is an area of 40,000 interlocking basalt columns next to the sea. Legend has it that it is the remnants of an ancient causeway built all the way across the North Channel by an Irish giant that accepted the challenge of a giant in Scotland. This otherworldly landscape started gaining popularity as a tourist attraction in the mid-1700s and became a World Heritage Site in 1986.
It's also the most visited attraction in Northern Ireland. On a busy day, it can see 5,000 visitors. I don't think we could even begin to guess how many people were here on this day. It sure looked like a lot, but it's easy to see why as you reach the bottom of the hill.
We have wandered all over the Giant's Causeway, at least this portion that juts out into the sea. There are some taller columns behind us that we still want to check out, but so far it's been really impressive. I know there are a lot of people here, but it's still worth it, you know, and I pause because I don't want to sound like I'm just saying that because this is the place that you want to come, but I do think it's worth it, and I think it's been enjoyable.
We're definitely the kind of people that enjoy places that are usually a little less crowded than this, but you should definitely just expect there to be a crowd here. It's a World Heritage Site, it's famous, it's beautiful.
If you come and there aren't many crowds, consider yourself lucky. There are times where you can get away with that, I think, but not today.
Another long, fantastic day comes to an end. That wraps up our trip around the Causeway Coast. Now we are going to complete this big slog back up the hill back to the car, and we'll see you all on the next adventure. Bye!